If Indian designers and artisans start doing these three things right, they can start selling product with these prices, launch their own brands, and will be millionaires. This sandal cost $1,200 at Prada. This one cost $20 in Kolhapur. They are almost identical, but guess which one the world calls designer? And if that made you uncomfortable, good. Because right now, as you watch this, millions of Indians are creating beautiful products, weaving stories into fabric, hammering silver into jewelry, and shaping clay into vessels that have fed families for centuries. And also, right now, somewhere in Milan, Paris, or New York, those same creations are being sketched, photographed, and reimagined by teams who will never know the artisan's name. That's how a mirrorwork blouse from Rajasthan becomes a boho festival top at Zara. A bandhani pattern from Gujarat transforms into Scandinavian minimalism at H&M. A brass tiffin from Mumbai gets rebranded as a modular lunch system in Copenhagen. This is not just about copying, it's the system which takes an old Indian technique, strip it off its soul, slaps a European label on it, and then just sell it back to us as innovation. What began as a sacred Bhuta in Persia and a mango motif in India is now paisley, a luxury print with an $800 price tag. The same floor seating your family had used for generations becomes Zen minimalism in an IKEA catalog. So my concern is, why does this still happen? Is it just greed, ignorance, or is there something deeper? Something about how the world sees creativity from the East? And more importantly, what can Indian artisans and designers do to change that? To get the credit and the value they truly deserve? To answer that, first we need to understand how design travels. But before we go any further, a quick disclaimer. I know it's easy to think that our culture is at the center of the world, that everyone is copying us, but this is not just about blame or nationalism. I want to understand with you that how this system works, why this keeps happening, and what can actually change. So let's start with the background of how does design actually travels. Thousands of years, patterns, techniques, and ideas have moved through trade routes, migration, or colonial expansion. And this movement isn't always bad. In fact, it's often quite beautiful. One culture borrows things from another, adapts some things, combine it with their own, and create something new. That's how it used to happen, through people. When someone migrated, they would pack their fabrics, their clothes, things they used in daily life, furniture, spices, food, tools, jewelries, and sometimes they would even bring their architectural elements just to feel like home in a new place. And then there were things that traveled for business. Merchants used to ship things to new countries and used to sell them as exotic stuff. The Silk Route, maritime trade, all of that. And then there were people who traveled for their jobs, like diplomats and missionaries. And sometimes they found better things while traveling. And when they came back home, they wanted those things in the environment again. Now, all of this travel used to happen with just physical objects. There was no digital file, no patents, and no certificates. So, when a design reached another place and locals liked it, they often copied it and claimed it as their own. Intentionally or not, that's just the natural course of things. But then there was another aspect: colonialism. When European colonizers came to places like India and Africa, they found amazing things, which were handmade, high quality, and full of details. So they took them back to Europe. There was one problem: these things were too expensive for the average European. Why? Because they were handmade, they took time and skill. So instead of selling the originals, they just copied them. They started mass manufacturing them in factories to make them cheap and easy to sell. And that's how chintz fabric from India was copied in France and England. The charpai was turned into woven benches and daybeds, but normal people in Europe who were buying them didn't know the origins, and nor did they care. They just knew the factory name or the brand name it was coming from. So they started naming things after the brands or the cities who were producing them. Like Kashmiri Bhuta became paisley after the Scottish town. cotton from India became Manchester cotton because it was processed there. And even though there were concepts of patents and royalties, colonial powers obviously were not going to give a part of their profit to their original artisans. But today, the world is way more interconnected. People travel a lot more than before, and more people travel than before. So, they know more about the origins of a design or art. Also, you can't hide the truth like before because, well, people have internet and there's a high chance that someone will point it out. And that's exactly what happened with Prada. Just last month, Prada walked out a new sandal in their spring summer collection in Milan. And the moment people saw it, especially in India, they knew. This wasn't some new silhouette. It looked almost exactly like the traditional Kolhapuri Chappal, a handcrafted leather sandal worn over 800 years in India. But there was no mention of Kolhapur, no artisans, no India. Just a 1200 euros price tag and a European runway. But this time, the internet didn't stay quiet. Designers, journalists, and everyday people started posting side by side images. And then it caught fire. And for once, the pressure worked. Prada issued a public letter acknowledging the Indian origin of the design and promised to work with the GI certified Kolhapuri artisans. They said that their team will visit India to explore the possibilities of collaboration. That's a small win, but it's also a reminder for us to look at why these things keep happening. What are all the reasons behind this? Let me ask you something. When you think of great designers, the ones who shaped the world, who comes to your mind? Dieter Rams, Charles Eames, maybe Johnny Ive. Now look at him. Do you know his name? What he does or what he makes? I didn't either. Not until I started researching for this video. His name is Vankar Vishram Valji. He's a weaver from Gujarat, India. He doesn't just weave fabric, he creates intricate, complex pattern on silk and cotton. He adopts them based on material, tension, climate, and even purpose. And he doesn't just design the pattern, he also designed the tools to make it. Over generations, his family developed and refined mechanical looms to bring their ideas to life. So he's not just a weaver, he's the designer, the engineer, the manufacturer, all in one. And he's not alone. Across India, in Varanasi, Kanchipuram, Assam, Gujarat, there are thousands of weavers just like him. People who don't just work with their hands, but with systems, logic, and form. They make choices about fiber, they modify looms, they invent mechanisms, solve production problems, and all without calling it product design. But no design book talks about them. No design school teaches their work. Because for decades, the world of design education has followed a single path. It starts with the Greeks and ends with the Bauhaus. Why? Because for a long time, the West has controlled what got published and what got taught. And everything outside that system, like this, was boxed into categories like craft, folk, or tradition, not design. Because when something is seen as ethnic or traditional, it becomes so easy to copy that and easy to ignore that. But here's what makes it even more complicated. It's not just that the West doesn't call it design. The people who create it often doesn't call it design either. Let's say you're a weaver. You've been doing this all your life. Your father did it, your grandfather did it. You know the feel of the fiber, the tension of the threads, the exact pressure your foot needs to apply on the loom. You have mastered it. To you, it's not design, it's just your work, your routine, something you learned, not something you invented. Now someone from a design studio in London or Milan, someone like me sitting here in Europe, sees your work. I study it, I replicate it, and build a product around it. I call it inspired. I trademark it and start selling it to a global audience. And you are still sitting in your village pricing it based on how much your local market is willing to pay. Because no one told you that it had a value beyond that. No one told you your system, your process, your way of thinking was design thinking. And the worst part is, even if you did know, the law still wouldn't protect you. Because the traditional design are passed down. They are shared and refined over generations. They don't belong to one individual. So there is no patents, no copyright, no certificate, which means legally your design is free to use. And most artisans don't know how to file for a GI tag or register an IP because they were not told that what they have created is worth protecting. So there's this huge gap between how you see your work and how the world sees your work. And in that gap, the exploitation happens. But even if the world starts to see the value, even if the creators start to claim that value, there is still something that stands between the credit and the creator, and that is the system itself. Let's say you run a global brand. You're always under pressure to release a new collection every 3 months. So, you need fresh designs, and you need them fast. Then, your team finds an old textile pattern from Gujarat. It's beautiful, it's functional, and best of all, it's not protected. Now, you have two options. You could fly out and meet the artisan, build a partnership, set up fair sourcing, or you could tweak it, rename it, style it, and launch it as your own. But the second way is faster, cheaper, and cleaner. And let's be honest, most of our customers won't even question where it came from. They don't care. Because in the global market, the biggest driver isn't originality, it's speed and profit. So the cycle continues. You take, tweak, sell, and repeat. And this appropriation isn't just allowed, it's rewarded. And until that changes, the creators will keep earning the least. But how to bring that change? After living and designing in Europe for the last 5 years, I think there are 3 things that can bring that change. Just 3 things. If Indian designers and artisans start doing these 3 things right, they can start selling product with these prices, launch their own brands, and will be millionaires. And those 3 things are: number 1, the culture; number 2, the protection; and number 3, the elevation. So firstly, the culture. The Indian culture is already rich, deep, and incredibly diverse. But I'm not talking about our ancient traditions. I'm talking about changing how we see ourselves. Here's what I noticed about design culture in Europe. When a Danish furniture maker creates a chair, they don't just sell a chair, they sell a story. They tell you about the wood they choose, why they chose it, how long it took to perfect the joint, what problem it solves. They are proud of their work, almost to the point of arrogance. But when an Indian artisan creates something equally beautiful, maybe even more complex, they often says it's just what my father taught me, it's nothing special. And that mindset is killing us. I know this sounds harsh, but as creators, we need a pinch of arrogance. Not ego, but conviction in our work's value. Because if you don't believe your work is worth 50,000 rupees, why would anyone else? Think about it. When Hermes sells a bag for $10,000, they don't apologize for the price. They explain why it's worth it. The leather, the craftsmanship, the heritage, the stitches. Yeah, the stitches. They've trained the world to see value where they want them to see it. And we need to do the same. I know we have been taught to be humble and polite, but it's time to stop. Stop calling yourself a karigar and start calling a designer. And believe me, the world will start responding differently. And moreover, when you start valuing your own work, only then you go to the second step of protecting what you have created. And you don't need a lawyer or lakhs of rupees. Sometimes it just requires knowing what tools are already available to you. Let's start with the GI tags. A geographical indication tag or GI tag is like a copyright but for the whole region's craft. Remember how Kolhapuri chappals have the name Kolhapur in it? Which means legally, no one outside of Kolhapur can call their sandals Kolhapuri chappals and sell them. Narsi saris have it, Hochampalli ikat has it, Madhubani paintings have it, and if your craft doesn't have one yet, you can apply it through your artisans group or cooperatives. But let's say your craft is too personal, too individual for a GI tag. Then there's something else called design registration. For just 1,000 to 4,000 rupees, you can register the visual appearance of your product for 15 years. You can do it online. through the Indian Patent Office website. Then there's trademarking. Even if you can't trademark the traditional pattern itself, you can trademark your version of it. Your brand name, your logo, your signature style. And I know some of these artisans don't even have 10,000 rupees. Fair enough. But everybody have a phone. And internet is cheap in India. So just take out your phone, take high quality photos of your work, write down every process, every step, every technique, every little secret your grandfather taught you. Then record videos of yourself working. Upload them to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere with a timestamp. Because the internet never forgets. And when next time Zara or Prada copies your work and someone calls them out, there's evidence. There is this trail. There's proof that you were doing it first. But it's not just about protection. It also brings us to the third step of elevating your brand. Now, if you've done the first two steps, if you've changed your mindset and protected your work, this third step will happen naturally. But let me tell you what elevation exactly means. It means when someone asks you about your work, you don't say, "It's just a simple design my grandfather taught me." You say, "This is a 300-year-old technique that required 15 years to master. Each piece takes me 40 hours to complete by hand. The pattern you see there, it represents the cycle of seasons in a region, and no machine can replicate the subtle variation that comes from human touch." That's elevation. It means when you price your work, you don't think, "What can my local market afford?" You think, "What is this actually worth?" Because price is a signal of value. When you price something low, the world assumes it's low quality. When you price it high, they assume there must be a reason behind that. And don't worry, you will always find a subset of people who are willing to pay a price that you ask for. When you start doing these three things, something changes. Instead of brands copying you, they start wanting to work with you. And when that happens, don't just let them buy your designs cheap. Partner with them. Ask for royalties, demand credit, make them pay for ongoing use, not just one-time purchase. Because now, for the first time, the conversation isn't just about copying. It's about credit. It's about value. It's about respect. And when that changes, everything changes. So next time you create something beautiful, remember, the world needs your work. But more than that, the world needs to know it's yours. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.